International Conference, Sustainable Energy Solution for Smart Cities, in topic Energy Demand and Planning in Data Centers. I would like to introduce our speaker, Mr. Michael Yong, CPDC Data Center Facility Consulting, Hewlett Packard Enterprise Asia Pacific. Will share us about the topic, Energy Planning for Mega Data Center. Please welcome Mr. Michael Yong.
Hope everyone is staying safe and well during this COVID pandemic. Thank you for taking your precious time to attend the seminar and also online Zoom seminar. So before we begin, I want to give a special thank to Dr. Monfrey. He's not here, but for giving me this opportunity to share my knowledge at this prestigious event. Again, my name is Mike Bunyo, and I'm the lead electrical engineer for Asia Pacific region, working for Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And today I'll be presenting on the topic of energy planning for mega data center. Okay. So a bit about myself. 30 years in design consulting services. Been 20 years working in the US and been covering leading the design team in Asia Pacific for the past 10 years. And yesterday was actually my 16th anniversary with HPE, so I've been getting all these notifications from LinkedIn and all these congratulations, and just nonstop. Okay, so what I want to do today is to bring real-world design experience of large-scale data center projects with specific focus on energy planning process. So you can see these are my projects that I've been working on. Mostly the larger ones are in Korea. I can't name, but you can kind of see the picture there. My role in each of these projects is to provide electrical design solutions and justifications to help customers make right decisions, implementing the most viable solution, suitable solution for their new data centers. Okay. So currently working on a 100 megawatt data center, currently a design, conceptual design. Okay, and among a few others, these two were done last year. And actually, we're supposed to wrap up the 100 megawatt earlier this year, but with COVID, basically I'm stuck. I'm in Thailand, and I go to Korea for this probably until the end of the year, early this year. Also did a few tier 3, 80, 45, 20. This was within the past 8 years expansion, right? So I've been doing so many projects within the region. And most of the bigger ones are in Korea. Also have experience with uptime, tier design and certification project. Two of them, 20 megawatts, one in India, the other one in Mexico City. This was in 2012. And I did conceptual design for one in Thailand as well, which is a 12 megawatts. I think this is in the Sarapuri region, with an increment of, I think, 3 megawatt each in four different phases. That was tier 3 certified projects. Also did PU benchmarking for Singapore government, which currently they use that as an index. Okay, they use that as index, current standard index for all data center in Singapore. And been doing PU analysis since 2006, and that's when Green Grid came up with the definition of PUE. Right? So I have extensive experience, which is crucial in-depth knowledge to have in order to fully understand the energy design and planning of data center. So that's enough about me. So what I want to do before we get into more detail is to provide a high-level overview, right, of how energy planning fits into overall design process. You know, we were asked to do a data center design, conceptual design. There's no specific thing that, you know, okay, we're gonna plan for the energy, right? You know, people actually want to see conceptual design. They want to see the single line. They want to see the layout. You know, they want to see the topology. They want to see all kinds of stuff. So how does this energy planning fit into all these design process, right? So we can think of this as taking a journey, right, step by step, through a high-level approach, large-scale data center conceptual design stages, and you'll see where these plannings are happening, are occurring within the process. Okay, so as mentioned, right, energy planning is just a part of the design process. One of the most important initial steps will be the right sizing of the IT server projection, which I will later explain in a little bit more detail, quick illustration. The right size, also the supporting power and cooling equipment has to be right sized during the operation stage, right? So later on, during the design and operation, you have to consider this. Otherwise, you will never achieve such, you know, objective of very efficient design. So the key is obviously, again, optimize efficiency. And the current target PUE that these Korean customers, they're asking is between 1.1 and 1.2 for the large scale data center. And you know, in the next few slides, you'll see why this is crucial to have such a low PUE for the multi-megawatt data centers. Okay, so this is achievable by evaluating the most viable, efficient technology of power and cooling equipment. Okay. Where possible, but again, the main intent, right, of designing a big data center is still commercially focused with holistic approach, minimizing the CapEx and OpEx, right? High reliability, availability, design. Obviously, you know, data center cannot go down. That's one thing that they don't want, right? When it goes down, everybody's panic and start running like, you know, like ants in water. Also maximize return on investment, right? So that's basically business driver for all commercial customers, which, you know, they're in it for the money. They're not in it for energy efficiency, right? It's just a part of it. So a bit about the design track. Just over a decade ago, we were looking at the design of 1 to 10 kilowatt rack. This was 10, 20 years ago. And now that number is increased to close to 10-fold. Close to almost 100 kilowatt per rack design now. Current, as a matter of fact, this 100 megawatt design that I'm doing Korea currently, they just revised the criteria to push to 100 kilowatt per rack capability. Okay, keep in mind that these are server technologies, right? It's a technology trend, which might not necessarily be applicable to all enterprise. I mean, you know, not every enterprise is going to jump in the bandwagon and say, hey, you know, I want 100 megawatts, right? It's really expensive and impractical. But sheer processing power with, you know, with the big data, analytic, artificial intelligence, analytic, and all these selfie that people do and all these TikTok do forever. Sheer processing power will eventually be required for business, right? So no matter how we perceive the future, there could possibly be, you know, a little chance that you might be able to escape it, but you know, maybe not that high of 100 megawatt, maybe, you know, in the 20, 30 megawatt, 20, 30 kilowatt per rack range, right? But more interesting question is, what's next? So for one decade, right, for past decade, we keep tenfold to 100, from 10 to 100. So for the next decade, would it be going up to 1,000 kilowatt per rack? That's crystal ball, right? Big question, right? Or are we looking into quantum computing technologies? Right? Then it could be eventually a game changer with completely brand new design. But that's again, that's the topic for another discussion. Okay, so legacy versus current design. So with having such high density server load design with multi-megawatt, right? So 1 megawatt is, I think, 1 million watt, right? The legacy design 10, 20 years ago, right? What I did before with many customers in the US and in South America is I want these 3 parameters to get into the design. Now I'm bouncing out the wall, you know, I'm the engineer, I want to do my design, I want to, you know, get to work, right? So these 3 items, IT server loads, white space area, and tier design weighting. So these 3 things, you know, within below 10 kilowatt, 20, maybe 15 kilowatt per rack range, I get these 3 things. And I can directly jump into detailed design, you know, with all the solution, with different topologies, different technologies, and so on and so forth, right? But with megawatt design, this of course is no longer practical. You know, initial investment cost and operational cost can be extremely high. So much more elaborate pre-design analysis and evaluations are performed to fully optimize the investment, right? Where energy planning plays a major role, which you see in the slide later on. Okay, so in this session, we'll just be focusing on energy planning topic rather than technical detailed solutions of how to achieve such optimization. So we won't be looking into the design or technical solution, but only the high level process, right? Because once you get me there, I'll never stop talking. And you're going to be here for 2 days. Okay. So this slide illustrates the reason why it's such a crucial in having so many processes going to go through before I jump into the design. This number actually shows the cost per megawatt of annual electrical bill alone. So it's 35 million baht approximately, with assumption of I think 4 baht per kilowatt hours, plus minus, right? Okay, so if you have 100 megawatt data center, this equates to 3.5 billion baht per year just electrical utility bill, and that's tremendous, right? And then on the sea level, then I'll be panicking that I need that much money, right? Sitting there, you know, crunching the application, you know, doing all kinds of application stuff. And this is just only electrical bill. You have water bill, you have, you know, maintenance, you have all these operations that go to the product, right? So this is again to reemphasize the need for detailed energy planning and optimization of such facility. Okay, so now you see why, you know, we just don't jump in, right? Get these 3 criteria and jump into the design. So right now, let's get into the conceptual design process, which is, you know, what we're here to discuss. Okay, this is a flow chart from an actual project that we showed the customer. Okay. So the Korean guys are very familiar with this. We keep saying it over and over. So it represents high-level design development process. It's comprised of three main categories, right? So this is the starting point. Before we do anything, we need to determine the IT load and projected growth, right? And then I'll explain in the later slide how the strategy, right? So we discussed business requirement and strategy, IT strategy, space, power, and cooling profile, and finally drive the IT load. Okay, once we have that, then engineers like me will get this basic report and start running with doing our thing. So we get into the second stage, which is conceptual design development. We develop design parameter-based design, technology options, evaluation, schematic, and reality, and then we hand it back to the analysis guy, which is the evaluation and decision-making stage, stage 3. So they'll do all the life cycle cost, modeling, all the analysis, construction costs, TCO, and finally they'll hand it over back to the customers, typically the management, for mid-decision making. If they're happy, yes, then we submit the final report. If they're not happy, we go round and round again. So again, 35 billion baht per megawatt per year is a big decision to make, and that's just the electrical bill. So it can be quite a daunting task to convince the management. So first and most important piece will be the strategy. Okay, so I'll go back step 1, step 2, step 3 to explain each one individually what is comprised of. And this is what we do on a day-to-day basis with all the customers. Okay, so the strategy guys, we have guys in India and guys from Europe and guys from the US. I happen to base in Singapore, but I need the engineering team here. So basically, I'm more or less a single point of contact and bring these guys into presentation and meeting with customers. So the purpose of strategy part is to align business objective with right sizing of IT server load. This is the most crucial part, in my opinion. Okay, and I'll explain in a minute why it will be trained. Okay, was it not properly aligned, it would be extremely expensive to operate after the go live date of the data center. And I did PU benchmarking in the US 10, 15 years ago. In the US, everything is huge. Everything is 10 megawatts, 20 megawatts, 30 megawatts. And their PUE is always 2.5, 3.1. They never really consider energy planning way back 20 years ago. So all these data center is really, really inefficient. So basically, the money is just leaking away through their backlog, right? So this would be completely unacceptable for such large-scale megawatt data center operation, and the company that's really conscious about its spending. Okay, this will have direct impact on construction costs, operating costs, as well as wasted energy with extremely inefficient design. Okay, so what is a strategy in right sizing of IT load has to do with my trains? Okay, so if we have a train, right, and we're designing a bullet train, so infrastructure costs, train costs, electrical costs, cooling costs will be horrendous. Okay, so why is IT load projection is the most crucial thing? Okay, so for example, if we're designing a bullet train that can carry 1,000 people, right, 1,000 passengers, okay, which is the longest one. And for the first 5 to 10 years, you only carry 100 people. imagine, the ROI, the expenses, the operation costs, right? So basically, if you misproject in the megawatt range, you're stuck with the bill. And one data center in Korea costs almost 750, 800 million USD, right? So you're constructing this huge facility, okay, and you bring these engineers in and didn't do their homework, right? And now you're stuck with 1,000 passenger train with, with 100 passengers. Okay, so this is the reason why, even though it's not what I do, this is the part somebody else, other group, Newly Packet Enterprises does this because we actually known for computers, right, and technology. Okay. So it's really crucial, and I let them take their time. You need another month, go ahead, and sit around at home, watch my YouTube, or do other things. So this is a sample of the strategy process, right, which involves multiple meetings and discussion with end users. Okay, so we sit down, these guys actually sit down with, the different groups to ask for their applications, and maybe they can do virtualization, they can do merging, they can do cloud, they can do whatever. So this is to understand the IT landscape and develop graph models based on various load growth. The ultimate goal is to define IT server load as well as future growth expansion and technology refresh load projection. Right? So for person, I want to say something. So Korean customers, they're actually using hybrid water cool, direct water cool systems. That's why you're able to push the kilowatt per rack, 50, 60, 70, 80 kilowatt per rack. So with that, right, you need to plan what percentage of technology refresh later are you going to do conversion to water cool. And you have entire floor dedicated for CDU, right, for the distribution of chilled water distribution unit. That's a mechanical term on the electrical side. So anyway, there's going to be a lot of planning, and if the more precise you get to the load, which is kind of crystal ball load, the better off your investment and your ROI. So in step 3, we finally derive a conclusion of strategy roadmap, which will define the space, power, and improvement. Okay. If there are any engineers in the room, then you know, okay, space, power, improvement. Now I can do my stuff. Right? IT server load estimation and projection, which is typically 10 to 15 years projection, and sometimes 20 years, depending on the life expectancy of the data center. And the report will be the starting point for conceptual design development process. And that's what we'll be talking about next. Okay, so this is step 2. Remember, strategy is step 1, just defining IT. So I walked through how we derive and do the report and what other steps. So it doesn't look like a black box to you. So now you have some idea. All right. The strategy roadmap report. We formulate the design parameter, including the business design. This is where engineers, the crazy engineers like me will come in. We're like sitting with our bouncy off the wall. And finally we got it. So we jump right in. Okay. And for energy planning discussion purpose, right? We will review the actual site surrounding condition, right, where the site's going to be. Not only to identify the risk of the facility, right? If there's flooding, if there's earthquake, if it's next to the terrain, next to the mountain, is there, an ocean next door or refinery next door, right? So we don't just identify the risk of building a data center next to something that's very dangerous. We also identify the opportunity to leverage available features of the site for energy planning options. Okay, what does this mean? Is there a lake? Is there ocean, geothermal vent, wind and solar farm, or any renewable power opportunities that we can tap into? Okay. So I remember talking to my colleague in Europe, and he kept mentioning, they're building this this data center next to a dam, and they never need, the hydroelectric is there, so the power is super robust. So I'm thinking, what if the dam, the water dried out, right? So these are the things that we identify that we take advantage of in order to possibly, reduce the energy cooling. That we can tap into geothermal vent, for self-generation, and solar for generation, so on and so forth, right? So at the same time, we develop white space and support function area, okay, taking consideration of modularity and scalability. Okay, this is a keyword. Modularity and scalability with Lego block concept approach. Okay. Provide precise load matching capability, which is the key in energy optimization during the operation. And this is the energy planning. And I'll explain to you in a minute what exactly that means. Okay, so if you have a train here, right? A super expensive bullet train. Okay. And if you construct each section, each bogie at a time, right? And let's say you have a 1,000 passenger train, and then first 5 years you're gonna have 100 passengers. So basically you construct only the first bogie that houses 100 passengers, right? That is precise load matching capability. So you have 100, you can install exact infrastructure to accommodate 100. That is the main key during the design phase for the energy planning to optimize the PV and the energy expenditure, right? So this is exactly what that means. Okay, I hope that's clear. And next key part for energy planning will be the technology evaluation process, right? This is where there's applicable technologies for both mechanical and electrical system will be provided with associated pros and cons. And I'll explain in a few minutes again. Oh, I have my training there too, so. We'll be discussing detailed workshop with the technical team and present to the management, right? So electrical viable proven technology will be proposed in this stage. And currently looking fuel cell and possible application of battery energy storage tied in with renewable system, which we briefly explained at the end. More importantly, the mechanical system technology will be a key driver for optimizing the energy planning for data center, which is contribute majority of the losses to the data center. So if you've ever been working or designing with the data centers, you know that majority chunk of the losses are from the chillers, from the cooling, from the fans, from the pumps, from the air distribution, right? Electrical is typically, if you have a PU of 1.6, typically 0.4 is from the mechanical, and maybe 0.2 to 0.1.5 is from the electrical. Okay, so we comprise the entire matrix, which I have in the next slide to show, of different various technology that's applicable, right, to achieve 1.1, 1.2 PUE, right? So we have the air side economizer, water side economizers. Now we even look at chillerless design. Okay, so all different technology that we can propose, and the Korean guys, they just don't do the simple stuff, right? These guys are all PhDs. they really have some very high expectations. So we have to bring in the latest and greatest innovation, workable solution for them to select, right? All right, on my training. Okay, so go back to the training again. So the training for this example, right? So the modularity, you have 1,000 passenger train, and then you construct only one bogie, 2 bogies, 3 bogies, depending on your load. And this technology evaluation and proposition, right? Okay, what kind of power are you driving this train? Diesel engine, solar power with electric motor, wind turbine, hydroelectric, right? What kind of cooling, it's probably less obvious, but you open the window, heat exchanger, what kind of cooling, what kind of electrical technology can make your bullet train system the most optimal to operate. Okay, so these are the evaluation up front. Because once you install it, basically you're stuck with it, right? Until the end of life of the data center. Okay, so this is a sample of the actual design technology metric that we used close to 10 years ago because of the IP and NDA, non-disclosure agreement, and then IP, intellectual property of the, I couldn't show the latest and greatest, but more current technologies that include in recent projects. This is to show the process. Okay, this is to show the process of justification for technology selection and evaluation in order to optimize the energy planning process. Right? So you have the mechanical on one side, and electrical configuration and different technology on different sides. So during the very first Samsung project that we did 8 years ago, we have 42 different options, okay, for them that we need to explain, and we need to justify, and we need to do all the evaluation and the cost and propose to the safety management for decision making. Okay. So now let's look at evaluation and decision making, which is the last phase of conceptual design. We take that to the minutes. Okay, so the last stage, right? So once we have all the solution, all the technology metrics, and we kind of convince them, hey, this is probably the best way to go. Then we down select for maybe 3 or 4 options, right? Then we start doing energy modeling and evaluation to perform on which perform on software and house calculations for each option, considering an energy consumption, forecasting, water usage, and emission analysis. This is to provide data analysis for most viable options in comparison to help assist with decision-making process, right? So once we down select, now the technical and management in trying on one, okay, which one's the best option, right? So this is where we do the data crunching of the actual specification of the equipment. Okay. Computational fluid dynamics, CFD analysis is also performed in corresponding to each option and layout. This is to ensure effective and efficient design can be achieved and compare among different options. Okay, so basically we analyze from chillers all the way down to air distribution and the server racks. So we very detailedly and systematically analyze every single element, okay, to ensure that the customer makes the right final decision. Other technical and commercial evaluation are also considered for further analysis to come to final selection and decision-making process. So we are also looking at uptime care requirement, reliability, and PDN and PTR, archetype, electrical, mechanical impact, KPI, PUE, modularity, as I mentioned in my training. business impact, health, safety, environment, long-term strategy, value engineering. So this is a holistic approach in providing the most practical solution to be implemented. You don't just look at, hey, this gives you the best PUD. Let's go with that. Right? You have to look at broad range of stuff, including operation and maintenance. Okay, and last and final part, which would be probably the most interest of the decision makers, will be cost analysis. This is including cost, construction costs, life cycle costs, net present value, CapEx, and OpEx. So all analysis and data are provided side by side for down selection of the most feasible solution, right? So considering various viable design technology and most practical energy saving to be implemented in design in the final design. So the key here in all this analysis is to help customers make sound decision based on technical and financial evaluated data. Okay. So, you know, with all the planning, all the design, you know, which one is the best? That's basically what we're trying to achieve here. Okay. So the conceptual report. So design conceptual design report are provided as a final product, right? Outline a journey of all discussion of various technology, design configuration options, energy planning, and evaluation reports. So technical drawings, including single line, layout, and all calculations, including basic design, will be delivered in this package, right? This is a final deliverable for the conceptual design of the report. So after we submit this, local engineers, like in Korea, we hand it over to local engineering firm, and they'll continue to the next level of developing the design, detailed design and implementation. Okay, so I want to talk briefly about future technology, the topic relating to energy sustainability for. I'm working with major global companies, global manufacturers like Tesla, Siemens, and GE. And actually, I actually called their engineers directly to try to possibly influence them to modify and try to adopt their latest and greatest technology to be utilized in data center. Because, you know, when you look at it, currently with the extent battery energy storage and utility grid scale, what they do is they connect this directly to the solar and wind renewable power, and off they go, right? It's plug and play, and then, you know, you get free energy, right? So you know, while we're proposing all different technology, and then it comes to my mind, so we have to be on the cutting edge and innovative, right, to propose to the, you know, such customers in Korea, right? So I decided, you know, hey, you know, this might be a good idea to tap in directly to the data center. So basically, we contacted them, and we're actually in the process ongoing right now with the discussion. So this option again will allow interconnection in renewable power source directly to the data center. Right? So ultimately, this is to achieve the objective of net zero energy. If you Google net zero energy data center, you see this 12-year-old or 8 years old document, right? Which was published by HP Lab close to 10 years ago, which was a bit ahead of its time, as usual with HP technology. But now, you know, with the technology maturity, seems to be catching up. It might be feasible now to implement such a solution, where they also showing, you know, the wind, the solar, you know, different, you know, renewable grids connection to the data center. But it's important to note that since most enterprise customers do not want to be test subject, right? Nobody wants to be a guinea pig. Nobody wants to, you know, raise their hand and say, you know, hey, I want to be the first to try this this latest and greatest technology, then how much does it cost? Is it going to go down in 5 years? And it's important to note that most enterprise, right, they don't want to be test subject, they don't want to be tried with the new technology. Right? Reliability is still the main objective of the design solution. And it has to be proven, okay? In order to propose something, the solution has to be proven technology with solid track record. So play it safe. Nobody wants to deploy something that's just came out yesterday. So it has to be in the market for some time. Solid record, never go down and breathe using the hole and really cheap to operate. Right? Local support and justifiable costs for maintenance and operation would need to be evaluated in detail. These are some of the considerations that engineers will have to validate in detail before proposing any viable technologies to the customer to be practically implemented. Right? So if I think, oh, this looks like a good idea, Mr. Engineer from Tesla, I cannot just bring this to the table tomorrow to Samsung guys and say, hey, you guys want to try this? It doesn't work like that. Yeah. So I hope this was a pleasant journey through the design process, right? And that you learned something useful, especially on my training. This was an interesting picture from Yahoo News that I saw earlier this week. And so it's an underwater data center, right? Who would really think to put water in data center underwater? But many of the leading global companies, like Microsoft, Facebook, Google, guys with money, right? Guys with money, maybe HP also, always more in the server industry, but constantly pushing the boundary and envelope of technology beyond the norm. Out of comfort zone, obviously, you're most engineer. Right? If I'm an engineer and you tell me, hey, I want my data center underwater, you're looking for, okay, you do that. But anyway, and then that's exactly what they did. And the failure rate reduced to about 8%. So that actually shows that human error, human interaction with anything, right, basically ruins everything. So that was the conclusion on the news that I wrote. That I read. So this illustrated thinking of thinking outside the box could be the key in achieving the next big trend in truly green energy data center design, right? So it's all our responsibility, especially engineering and the engineers, to come up with innovative solutions to make the world a greener place and reduce pollution from all. So thank you for taking your time. I think that's perfectly 44 minutes and 44 seconds. I don't know if there's going to be any questions or really understood what I was saying on this time. Excuse my accent.
Okay, so if you don't have any questions, you can drop him like email address. So yes, back us. Yeah.
Yes, our contact HQ is really active in enterprise local people because I'm currently still based in Singapore. But with COVID, I'm stuck in Thailand and I can go back. They're not letting me back home, so I'm stuck here.
Okay, if you have any questions, just drop him to his email address because we run off the time. Okay, so thank you and get a big hand for.
เขาบอกเป็นช่วง
Okay, good afternoon. My section will be on the total energy consumption of data center sector in Thailand. Actually, we have done research for the government almost about 3 years ago, and we have that number. So today we come up with the idea, give you the background about why data center need more energy, why it's important, because after this research, we propose to the Thailand government for the new PDP 2018 revision A, because I just come from another section that we're talking about the community energy as well. Okay, the agenda will be the data center challenge, data center cooling, data center energy efficiency, and energy demand and supply in Thailand. And lastly will be the data center energy consumption and growth model that we have proposed. But it's not maybe 100% yet, but we still keep collecting information from many data centers in Thailand. Okay, for data center challenge, I will give you the idea about the number that on the red one. We're talking about percent of the overall density power consumption. Look at this number carefully, and at the end, I try to prove this will be quite the same number, and the rest faster in the density of the server, as you know. Actually, I used to work for HP like Mike almost 15 years ago. ตั้งแต่ตอนที่อยู่พระราม4ครับ until they move to the new one, right? And they have concern about reduce the both carbon dioxide. Right? And in the future, 20%. And the IT equipment is increase more density like a more law, right? Every about 18 months, double in register. And even though the sizing is reduced by half, that means what will be happen in the data center? Because the lifetime of data center is about 15 to 20 years, but the lifetime for the server or network only about 4 to 5 months, 4 to 5 years. That means 3 times, 3 generations of the server, but living in the same room, like my kid. Only 4 months you have to change the shoe, right? If you got a kid, you know you have to spend a lot of money with the shoes and shirt or something that they grow so fast. It seems to be like a data center. That we have to concern about this one. That's the thing I will tell our government, or not just our government, EGAT, PA, or MEA, because I work as ITB member as well. I give them signal already, but after this seminar, I will give them more the detail as well. And I think on November, we will have the seminar from the ITB Thailand chapter about the smart city and data center. On that seminar, I will tell deep in detail, because on that seminar, we take about 3 days over there. If you interested, I will send, because I have all your contact here already, that I will drop you this thing. What will be happen, because it's come up with the processor. Right now, we have CPU, and we have GPU, right? That the original source of the heat that we have to do the heat rejection. That's why even though the ASHRAE is 100-year association, they still come to talk about it at the data center, what will be happen. You can check with the ASHRAE TC 9.9. The last version I checked is about 2018. That's the last question. You can check on that one. Or even though you can check on my website, the data center university.org, that I drop all information over there. So that means actually they come up with the concept because we live in the equator, so the worst climate in the world. We live in hot and humidity. That the air conditioning have to work maybe twice than the rest of the other, right? So that's why they have the concept about we live on the zone we call A1. That's the worst. So that means we can operate from 18 until 27. What outside temperature right now? ช่วงนี้ฝนตก Maybe can come up to 38, 39, but inside your operation on 18, what will be happen? Condense, right? That many data center that I have to help them to solve this problem because outside is about 38, inside is about 18. Condense anyway. But what will be happen if the dry humidity is very low? You become another side effect we call mental short, electromagnetic discharge. พระเจ้าบอกทางสายการ the middle way is better, so you have to operation of that one. So that means I prove already if you turning higher more temperature inside data center but not affect to the server, that will be the good thing. You can save more the energy. That's why I have another research that right now waiting for the point for scholarship that we have to do about the research how we can reduce the power inside data center in Thailand. So that scholarship need 100 megawatt from my project that we under waiting. If money comes, the research can keep going. That's the basic concept. So that means we have to prove in many data center, especially on government data center, that I did from the digital electric agency or EGA electric. That right now they change the name to สำนักงานพัฒนารัฐบาลอิเล็กทริกนะฮะ That's the name. So that many things involved is temperature that you will operation. Last slide ofคุณMike. Microsoft doing the submerged or undersea data center. So maybe in the future maybe they say, but I will show you another about the green. There's a data center or we talking about free cooling. You see about this roadmap. What is this country? Close to England. Ireland we call the capital city of data center. Why? We need something free. Someone say water actually is better. The condition of the outside, right? Ireland mostly about 6 to 8 months. The temperature will be below 10 or below whatever, depend on which month. So you enjoy about the free cooling outside. That means you put cold temperature outside, heat, moisture, and then pass to the data center. So that's the idea. But where are we? We are on the red one. เมื่อผมยังเด็กมันยังมีหน้าหนาวนะ But right now we have hottest. We have 42 seasons right now. So that means we are the equator. So that means we have to handle this one. But if the answer in the equator, you cannot set up a data center asking about Singapore, what happened? All over there, Facebook, Google, Equinix, digital reality is over there. So that means the answer is maybe not. So we have to looking for the new solutions. No problem, engineer can do anything if we have money. Money can do anything. Okay, next, that island. You see about island want to become the world data center capital. They need urgent money about 10 billion to investment in power or in energy as well. to be developed. What will be happen another 4 months? We don't have free cooling, chiller, electric chiller. We need power anyway. So solar or whatever. Many data center operators in the world try to change. They don't want to use any carbon footprint power. They want to move to renewable energy. So what will become real? We have wait and see. And this data center energy efficiency, it just tell you from here we call demand and supply, right? Data center will be on the demand side. The energy will be on the supply side. That means from produce until to substation to transmission, we call generation, transmission, and distribution. Data center will be at the end, right? They are consuming. So we will tell you another problem that we have in Thailand after this one. We need efficiency on the transmission system. We need efficiency on the UPS. We need efficiency on the chiller. We need efficiency on power supply unit. But the server has to eat electricity or eat the power anyway, right? So because I work as a Big C Thailand country chair, actually we have the standard of Big C in data standard in operation standard that we're working on right now with the committee, and we have the disaster project management as well. If you're interested, you can get into the website of Big C. You can buy online anyway, right? If you are student, you get discount. Okay, go faster for the power productions in Thailand. You see, the energy demand it increased anyway, but this one I think from the EGAT. So you can find out this one from the website of the EGAT. I will not get into the detail about this one. You will see about the demand, the cluster of the power that classified to EGAT, PEA, and AVA, ISP, or PPA. This what happened because the peak demand that's in 2019, and when compared to 2019, it's about 30 gigawatt that we need. Highest this one. What will be happen if we need this amount of power? That means we need to supply the whole power more than this one, right? Because we still need a gap or safety because spinning whistle. And this one you will see. Last slide, I told you about the demand is about 30 gigawatt, right? But on this one, you see this number. This year, on July, right? We have this number 50 gigawatts that we can supply. So that means we still have a gap to manage on that one. And you see this will be demand on each segment. You see the data center here. The answer is no. That means they didn't count on the data center, right? And this one, it means what the source of the energy that we use to produce. Mostly you will see natural gas, right? Because I work as a consultant for PTT, LNG, so the demand increased. So right now, not just only the PTT, LNG that can import the LNG. Right now, we still have the Gulf, or even though the EGAT themselves can import the energy, the LNG. So come to this point, that means that will be the risk for this country. You see what I mean? If you rely on one source of energy, what will be happen? Right? That I have mentioned this one from many previous seminars already. And let's see, because last year, the previous one in to 25 to 61, right? The demand is still not too high, right? But on last year, right, the blue one, it climbed up to 32 gigawatt. But this year, why it's too? Because COVID. If not COVID, what will be happen? Will be another graph above the blue one. So that means the demand is go up every year. So that means the trend of the energy I try to go faster. You see on this category, it doesn't have the data center power requirement in the PDP plan. I try to pinpoint. This is the grid modernization in the future. Right now, EGAT, PA, ABA, they didn't share any data to each other. So this research comes from the smart grid of Thailand. This paperwork, because I have I have involved with this research last 2 years, I think last 2 years. We have to think about the smart grid of this country. That means we have to know on demand side and supply side so we can balancing to each other, right? This concept and the idea, I think, yes, we come to the right. So we don't need the capacity reserve too much. From the research, we know we have more than 30% of power reserve. What does it mean? If you have more power reserve, that you have to pay more, right? That's why FIT cost for the electricity in this country is expensive. You pay something you don't use as well, right? So this idea, I will come up at the end about this one. And this will be a total energy, not total, maybe the least of the whole data centers in Thailand. That's all the big one. Some company have 2, some company have 3. I try to list all I have. This different from the data center map.com, and you select Thailand, you will see. But on the data center map.com, they don't have all. But I try to get that, as I mentioned, it's my research. I try to find my personal connection, help to keep update. At least I supply about 29 data centers in Thailand, and they spread around Bangkok. Mostly right now, I can tell you, most of them will be on Ramkhamhaeng, Lagabang, and Bang Na. That in the future will be power density over there. I think you see they come up with this one. I asked questions on many seminars. Why Bang Na it become famous for data center? Remember flooding crisis in 2554, right? If we have many major flooding crisis, and that the effect of that crisis. So Bang Na become famous one. We come up get close to the total energy consumption for the data center. That on my research, you have the X1. That means the government data center that I did the research on 3 years ago. The 260 megawatt. That may not more accuracy because the garbage in equal garbage out. So all the data I have, I try to interpretations about this one. And X2 equal to IDC, that or 29 release of data center. We try to come up with a total number about this one, about 140 megawatt. And commercial, financial, and bank, this one 20 megawatt. That means an assumption on minimum requirement. And therefore, the list of company that is set or mine. That is a small company, but they may have the data center by themselves, or we call the server room maybe about 200 kilowatt UPS or something. Yes, they will have that one. So I come up somehow with about 50 megawatt. So that means the total of the power consumption on this nation for the data center. But as I mentioned, this number is maybe not accuracy 100%. If we want to do more accuracy, we have to waiting for the smart meter. That we have to waiting AMR, right? And AMI infrastructure. So I can tell you exactly how many data center on this country and how many megawatt they use per hour, or we can come up with megawatt hour. So that means we can see more after that infrastructure implement. So the idea is we have about 470, right? And I use the simulation on growth model, 10%, 20%, 50%, or maximum capacity. So that means when we just calculation the need, the demand of the power in 2025, 63 is about 30 gigawatt. And we divided by, it's come up with this number, 1.549. Remember that first number I told you about 2, right? That means we already grow up on the demand of the power in the data center. But we didn't talk about this one yet, the data density. Because you see on this graph, all the power consumption in data center is go up. And you see on this one, everyone moves to hyperscale. The number I told you is already presented in today. We didn't talk about tomorrow yet. What happened for tomorrow? If this coming, the hyperscale data center, that we design for 100 kilowatt per rack or something. Or right now we're talking about 40 kilowatt per rack. That we call HPC, high performance computing. That all the trend is come up on that one. You see from this one. The hyperscale data center, you see Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple is not just in Thailand. What happened when they come? Or they don't come because we don't have the power for them? That's the questions we have to find out. They didn't come because we didn't have the power to supply them. Or not, we don't know. Right now, I'm starting to talk to this guy, right? Or this one group of we call hyperscale data center, and another one we call the large data center operators. That only one right now in Bangkok, in Thailand is Switch or SuperNet. And after this section, you will see a representative from Switch or from the SuperNet. So that means all the big guy is not in Thailand yet. If they come, what should we prepare the power for them? So right now, when we're talking about the demand of the power for hyperscale data center, we're talking about 100 megawatt per one data center. What will be happen? Because it's bigger more than substation anyway. So we have to talk and discuss more in high level of management that I will have the meeting with the president of the EGAT, PA, because I as a committee of the IEPS, I will give this information to them because I just sum up just last night this presentation. So that means I will gonna present to them and give you another idea about what will be in the future. This I copy from the PDP 2018 revision 1. That means the latest one about the power that Thailand can produce. I think you will see on the website of the EGAT. That means we have the plan in the future. How we can produce more power without building another dam, building another combined cycle, building another coal power plant. จะสร้างเขื่อนประท้วงจะสร้างโรงไฟฟ้าถ่านหินประท้วง what will be happen if the demand grow up every day but supply side cannot move ahead So that means we need to concern about this one. Building the power plant, not just a few months, not just a few years. It may take long time. Sometimes take about 3 years, 4 years, but demand size grow up every year. So that means we need to concern. But lucky we have this slide. That means EGAT, PA, ABA, they have the plan together to build we call big data to synchronize or we call smart grid together to supply and to balance between demand and supply in the future. But it will take time anyway, I told you. Because it's difficult to find a leader, right? The leader cannot be one of any three at here. They have to got another one, like เช่นเอากกพ.มาประมาณนั้นแต่กกพ.เองก็ไม่มีอำนาจหน้าที่ that's the problem that we have to discuss about this thing เป็นเรื่องปวดหัวเหมือนกันนะครับ so finally I try to point the suffer in the future for this nation if they have or they want to have the hyperscale data center come to Thailand we have to prepare this thing for them otherwise the big project cannot be happen right okay so because we have about the time concerns so if you have any questions you just drop me to my email address or sometimes you can call me or if you want more data information you can go to the website we call datacenter.university.org that's all the public paper technical paper on each any category of the data center we have over there and I think hopefully the all information today will be useful for all of you okay we have take a break about 15 minutes and then we come back with panel discussion with the we have about SuperNAP here we have about STT GDC that will be the first hyperscale data center in Thailand ที่จริงไปใกล้บ้านผมเลยนะ and we have about the Schneider here and we have about the consultants who build more data center in Thailand from Acumen okay come back about 3 p.m. and we will have interesting topic about what we're going to see the evolution of data center of Thailand thank you next section will be panel discussion. So the topic for discussion will be the evolving data center markets in Thailand and ASEAN. So we have the four speakers. That the first will be Dr. Nitipong Bunlaw. He is commercial director from SuperNAP Thailand. The second one will be Ms. Busarin. She is the general manager at STT GTP Thailand. And the third one will be Mr. Abe. He's the data center Indochina cluster head, secure power division from Schneider Electric Thailand. And the last one will be Mr. Kasem. He is the executive director and co-founder of Acumen Consulting Thailand. So that will be a good to see about what will be happening about the data center in Thailand. First, I would like to invite Dr. Nitipong Bunlaw give you the idea about what will be the data center trend in ASEAN and data center trend in Thailand.
Thank you very much and the audience. Well, I think that the data center market in ASEAN is quite has a growth trend quite good in years.
ดรคะอันเนี้ยเราจะเห็นหน้าจอของ
You can see that a lot of
แล้วพอ
data center
พิธีกรไอ้สปีกเกอร์ค่ะแชร์สไลด์มันก็จะ
expanding in Singapore, probably from almost every brand that you see operating in the market. And we also understand that the Singapore market also may have so much expansion that they may have some power issue in terms of expanding large data centers. And I think it's probably because that a lot of these OTT companies are expanding a lot from the European market to the US market now coming into the Asian market more and more. And those are some of the reasons that with the growth of like people using mobile, you can say that the ASEAN countries have over 600 million population. So along with 600 million population, probably 600 million mobile phones or more probably, but some these days people have more than one mobile phone. So with this large access, people go into the content. This makes up the large expansion of the data and usage, and with the large amount of these data content, it will certainly expand. Actually need the data center to go somewhere. That's why a lot of countries in the region are expanding, especially Thailand, which has 67 million people, mobile subscriber base beyond the population. So these are some of the growth trends that we see in the market. And access higher for mobile subscriber. So these are some of the preliminary initial thoughts. So perhaps we can other panelists can also share some ideas, and we can add more.
Yes, because Supernet is the biggest data center that installed and operation in Thailand. And another new coming will be the STT. And the same question, what do you think from Radia could speak about the ASEAN trend of the data center and the trend in Thailand as well?
Question. Probably, let me share you some of the information that I have.
Yes.
In terms of the Asian data centers, so as of now, in terms of the Asian data centers, based on studies from Frost and Sullivan, so the growth rate, annual compound growth rate will be approximately around 14 to 16%. And the major driving force for this is, of course, like the information on the growth of hyperscale providers as well as the cloud service providers. And in other countries, for example, other than Singapore, which is already a mature market, so the rest of the country, like Indonesia, Thailand, still there are a lot of potential to grow based on the supporting from the governments on the digital initiative and transformations, the e-commerce booming that everyone after the COVID situation, so everyone is using a lot of digital shopping online. That's also another key factor that also drive the traffic and increase the demand for the data centers. Another thing would be because of the strong demand and increasing demand as I just mentioned. So the major data centers provider like also mentioned that there are many brands that are starting to do the expansion a lot. So that will create another intense competition within this ASEAN region as well. And even that each have their own brand name, their own brand, so each will try to find a strong value proposition for the consumer where other than provide a simple colocation or data center services, but also looking at like other managed services, securities, and also connectivity services. And just to give you the pictures, so within the region, as mentioned, Singapore is of course the biggest country that has the most data centers. The next one will be Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, and Thailand. As of now, is number 5. This is also based on cost and service studies. In terms of the market service revenue, this year, so it is expected that the total market size would be around $3 billion and will go up to be around double, which is around $6.1 billion this is based on the annual compound growth rate of around 16%. So this is the actual one. Can I touch a bit on Thailand? So I this in terms of, so looking down into Thailand ourselves, in Thailand, the majority of the industry that drive the growth of the data center requirement would be the, of course, banking, financial institution, and insurance. Other than that would be the automotive, the content providers, and also the retail. Apart from this, the biggest trend, the biggest provider that also just coming along, and as mentioned earlier, is also the OTT guide, as well as the content service provider that started to expand their own footprints, of course, because of the increasing demand in the online e-commerce usage from all the users. So this is based on the study from Frost and Sullivan as well. So the annual growth rate, annual income growth rate for Thailand is even more than in ASEAN. So it's around 26%. So this is even make Thailand more attractive for all the data center providers to start to expand into Thailand. And with the government supporting as well on tax incentive for investments, as well as the deployment of the 5G, which is coming along. So that is even have a positive factors for the data center growth as well. And of course, competition is coming. Yeah. So in terms of the annual compound growth rate, for this year, it is expected that the total market size will be around $200 billion, and will grow up to be around $600 in year 2025.
Okay, thank you. And we got the idea from two biggest data center of Thailand. And the next, would like to update to share about the perspective of the we call the brand or the equipment. What would be the trend in ASEAN?
So I think we already heard from a few of the largest data center service providers, or CSMSP in our segment, where we call it. So I believe we need them in Thailand, right? We want Thailand market to grow. But of course, what we have seen for a few years in Asia, in ASEAN, that if you see the population within ASEAN is quite large, where, as mentioned, we use a lot of content, right? And because of COVID again, this has also gave us the new normal way of working, where we have many people working from home. We have the largest workforce in the global, which operates from home. So the network connectivity has become a very important factor of our day-to-day life, right? Today, there was a time, I remember, if I look at 5 to 6 years back, when the cloud was, or 10 years back, when cloud term was first introduced and commercialized by Amazon, where maybe you will know that in 2006, this was commercially announced. From then to now, there's a big paradigm shift of the content user, right? If today I use my service provider and I try to connect to YouTube and if the system is buffering or taking a long time, what I will do, I will check it off and go to another one, right? So there is a shift, and if it's not only the telecom service provider, but also a backlash to the content provider, that they have to be closer to the user. And as we all know, the largest users are within ASEAN. So this is where the data utilization within ASEAN has to increase. So the footprint for all the content providers, all the CSNPs in ASEAN is increasing. But of course, that comes with a challenge. Dr. Montri already explained during his presentation that the weather in Thailand or in ASEAN doesn't support few of the technologies which can improve the impact on global warming. It doesn't support. So this is where we have seen good technologies deployed. For an example, SuperNAP, where they're using indirect evaporative cooling. In STT, where they're using the high index water temperatures, which actually contributing to reduction of global warming. So these are the when we look at the topic of sustainability, this is where the big CSNFP service providers are taking the extra step towards meeting the requirement. Of course, we have a bigger footprints, but we also need to look at from a sustainability standpoint that if you have such power-hungry data centers coming in ASEAN, how we going to cope up and how we're going to contribute towards the requirement of sustainability, right? We also need to live in these countries where the temperatures are already hot, and we expect that by 2050 it's going to run up to 2 degrees plus. So this is where there is a good contribution, and that's where Schneider Electric is committed, that we work with our customers and our partners and our esteemed customers with SuperNet and SCT is also working closely with us. And we are also happy that we are contributing from our part, that we are contributing towards sustainability, and all our products which we deploy are really supporting this cause of reduction of carbon footprint and also supporting to reduce the emission. So I believe that's where, from an ASEAN and Thailand standpoint, it's good that we need growth, but we need a sensible growth where we can be sustainable, and that's the shift which we have seen in a lot of CSNSP providers. They are taking this extra step. Even the capital cost increases, but there is a view back to the community, and that's a great point on few of the large CSNSP which they are really considering in their designs and deployments. So that would be from another angle.
Okay, thank you. That will be for the anchor point for some biggest for suppliers, equipment and products for the data center. Okay, the last one will be a good point because he's a consultant. He did many biggest data center in Thailand as well. So, Khun Kusem, can you share us about the ASEANs and even market? What should it be in the future?
Thank you, Dr. Mati. So I'm glad to be here in front of our customer as well. I used to get involved with the panel and also currently. Okay, so currently I'm part of the helping the customer for the NTT as well. Also working closely with the Schneider team for the coming up project as well. So this will be another angle at the consultant. So. So this is I'm very enjoy to share this slide every time when have a chance to get into the stage, because this is the evolution of the data center in ASEAN, even in Thailand as well. So as you know that very much in our country, everyone happy to have their own data center and in-house data center, but they never thought of the expense or initial CapEx and OpEx as well. So I did the study for this kind of thing for the investment cost in terms of the CapEx and OpEx. So with the result it come up the co-location or the third party service provider, but very much good for the investor or the customer, because they can use for the expense as well. Also, they don't have to hire the new amount of the staff. So this is the key that I can see that the Thailand move forward to go out for the co-location, not try to allocate the budget for move forward of the build their own in-house data center to go out for the co-location. So this is the good shape. So for the ASEAN, you can see that we are in between the transition between the co-location and move forward to the hybrid cloud. That everyone know that big corporate now is not afraid of the cloud, the public cloud anymore. So they starting to more and more in terms of the public cloud, and also at our countries also promote in terms of the e-commerce and all the finance and everything in online banking. So if we have the very good standard of the, and we have the, right now we have big player from the international to be located in Thailand. This is the good for our country and for our people that we can upskill and have the up level in terms of the technical and all the skill for data center. Okay, so at the ASEAN, you can see the population that the Dr. just mentioned that we are about 69. So our internet user is about 57 new. When you compare with Singapore, only the population is 5.7. So an internet user is only 4.8. But when you see the next slide, you will be surprised. Okay, here we go. So data center index that for the Asia Pacific length. So the Singapore is number 1. That they have a huge amount of the in terms of the megawatt. Compared to Thailand, even less than 100 megawatt. So but it's coming soon. So this is the some kind of the statistic that number of the internet user and also the number of the internet compared from the previous 2017 up to the growth of the 2025. So at the moment we are about 52 to 57 users. So for the next level that we classify as the tier. So we have the tier 1 and tier 2 data center market. The overview that Singapore, Hong Kong, Tokyo, or Sydney have the tier 1, and Thailand or ASEAN, it's like Beijing, Shanghai, Mumbai, Seoul, Vietnam, and Thailand is the second tier. So for the tier 1, as you know that right now is the cost of the building, then in terms of the operation is very high. Also, the land is become very difficult to find, and also some government they are trying to tidy the control of the data center supply as well. Like Singapore, they are still limit of the building the new data center. So this will be the good chance for our tier 2 level like Vietnam or Thailand like us. So that's why. At the consultant, right now we get some inquiry that for 100 megawatt hyperscale data center from Europe to be do the site selection in Thailand already. So it means we have 2 or 3 more coming. So this is the good news for us. So like you have the big player like the market like Alibaba, Amazon, Google, Microsoft. They are already present in the classified of tier 1. But for tier 2, okay, for the tier 2, as I mentioned before, that we have the opportunity to grow our data center. So Thailand, we still have only 10% to be here, present at the Thailand, but it's only the some existing building. It's not like proposed build yet. So right now we have the 2 big players that we do the big proposed build data center. So I think we have the very good shape for the hyperscale data center available, but our government have to understand all the requirements as well. This is very important in terms of the reliability, power supply, and also the availability from the multi-service provider and latency and everything. So I think I should be stopped at this point first.
Okay, that you heard about the good news that we have the same news that becoming, but becoming a power, not enough. What should you do? That would be another good news with the new problems. Okay, the second round, I would like to ask Dr. Renewable. What do you see the data center of Thailand in 2025? That means another 5 years from now. What should it be?
Sure. Before we go to the 2025, right, just want to point out that I'm very glad that the same analysis showed that the Thailand market has a potential growth. And I just want to note, before we go to 2025, at least in 2021, which is next year, right, Thailand is kind of like we will have more. Just say one reason that's going to help data growth in Thailand. Right? One of the reasons are submarine cables that's coming into Thailand. Means in the past, there's limited submarine cable, so that means that the data that's coming from hubs like Singapore and Hong Kong to come to Thailand has to go to these two countries as a hub. While going forward, there will be more submarine cable built into Thailand from Japan and Hong Kong. So that would mean that these infrastructure in terms of the international submarine cable will certainly help build the easy access to data to flow into the country. And with the flow of these data into countries like Thailand, right, border country will also benefit because if you can see right now, traffic, 90% of Myanmar traffic going to internet is coming to Thailand. Almost 100% of Lao traffic is also coming to Thailand. Probably around 80% of Cambodian traffic coming to Thailand. And because Cambodia in the past, probably 100% came to Thailand, but now since there's one submarine cable that links to Malaysia, Thailand, and Cambodia, that helps Cambodia to offload traffic on submarine cable. So that means that bypass Thailand to Malaysia. So these are the things that are going to drive the traffic that's going to be coming through Thailand more and more. And right now, traffic from countries like Vietnam, because Vietnam right now has much more internet bandwidth going outside than Thailand right at the moment. And 90% of those Vietnamese traffic, probably around 90% goes to Hong Kong directly, while only 10% goes to Singapore. It's very less, but very surprising, less. And I think that if Thailand, once we have these large mega data centers like we have counterpart in the media, that will help countries like Vietnam to offload or make redundant of the data traffic as opposed to going all the way to Hong Kong. Perhaps come to Thailand and maybe definitely improve latency and also probably reduce costs as well. However, in order to do that, meaning that a lot of content provider has to see Thailand as a country where they want to put their information inside. Like Mr. Sen mentioned right now, it's just 10 cent, small scale 10 cent that we have on cloud. Right? In the future, the larger cloud like AWS, Google, or Azure Cloud from Microsoft, if these guys can come, definitely they can serve countries like Myanmar, Laos, and Cambodia, where high growth is going to happen. And latency from Thailand going to these border countries will be very good compared to having the data hosted in other countries. That means that the location of being Thailand can help support these OTT or cloud provider e-commerce that they want to expand into the ASEAN countries with the improved latency and to actually attract the user or subscriber base easier. So meaning that once this kind of stuff happens in 2021, 22, that will extend onto 2025, right? Because right now, I would say that probably 60 to 70% of internet bandwidth is going to Malaysia. When we say going to Malaysia, it's just in terms of transmission, going to the Thai border terrestrial way. And that's just due to cost. The cost, having more submarine cable, the cost may reduce and giving alternatives to how data flow into the country. And that will definitely increase the chances of having more data centers in Thailand. And as you can see from the analysis earlier, that Singapore has a very large, even though smaller population, but a lot of data centers there. Right? But however, if all these data provider wants to tap into the ASEAN market, which is the 600 million subscriber, I think coming to countries like Thailand will definitely actually improve not just latency but cost also, because cost-wise, right, total cost value when traffic having to go down to Singapore or Hong Kong, the transmission cost is very high, and sometimes the user or the provider didn't recognize this. While if these data were hosted in a country like Thailand, the cost of having this data would be much reduced, definitely compared to other countries. While that is not happening yet, while I believe that with the trends of the growth of the border country, high growth like Myanmar is growing, mostly Myanmar is growing, and if Vietnam can divert at least 30% of their traffic into Thailand to reduce their own costs, that will grow Thailand tremendously, and that will be a good kind of like background for the Thailand to expand to the 2025 and the 2025 most likely. Definitely, we hope that the power, the India, the DEA, will be able to produce the power enough for these high consumption of data center. And we understand from the market that a lot of international data centers are looking into Thailand, not just, okay, Japan was one of the first few ones, we're the first commercially tier 4 data center that's here in Thailand. And I think that by us being here will help raise the standard of the data center in Thailand. And with STT will have here also. NTT was here a few years ago from Japan. And I think that there will be more data center coming here to tap this market once they see that the ecosystem is more complete. Ecosystem, what I mean is like the submarine cable coming to Thailand, the cost of the rest reduced, and the content provider or the cloud provider actually come more into Thailand. And I think that will also probably need government to help support this initiative. So I believe that by 2025, the data will be 10 times more than right now at the moment. And that's probably normal trend anyway. But right now it's probably 30 or 15 terabytes going to international. So going forward, will probably be 10 times of them. And people will have more access method to get to these data, not just from mobility, but also from IoT devices, especially in Thailand. I think we have almost 30 million vehicles, something like that. So with the motor vehicle expanding, every car is like a mobile phone, right? Every car will have a SIM in it. Every car will send a SIM to their SIM in the car to transmit data, to monitor everything that's related to the vehicle movement or information. And that will cause a lot of growth in the data consumption. And with the motor vehicle growing, that means that the latency of the information from the cars, connected car to the central lines, will need to have reduced as much latency as possible. So meaning that these data center using motor vehicle kind of information cannot be outside Thailand, or else the latency will be too much, because the latency from Thailand to Singapore is 30 milliseconds to probably 40 to 60 milliseconds. So that's too long. While if data is hosted in Thailand, that means that all the IoT device sensor, you can get information back within less than 5 milliseconds. And that's where Thailand will grow, and the upcoming 5G will help drive those. So we look forward for a very kind of bright future for data center business in 2025, which is not that far out. And to say that 10 times traffic growth is not far out as well, because sometimes, definitely year by year, data growth will double anyway from the past history. So these are some of the things we see will be the driver that will see the growth of data in Thailand in 2025.
Thank you. That will be future, because I think we got an idea. Singapore, they have 12 landing stations. That means submarine cable. Thailand have only 3, but we have population more than them. That's the point. Okay. The second question go to COMPUTATIONAL. What Thailand market of the data center in 2025? should be.
Dr. Nico made a very good point on the ecosystem. Actually, data center is not just a facility. It actually, there are many factors that help support the growth of the data centers, apart from the cost connectivity. And if we have a variety of connectivity with the more economical costs, then it will help drive as well. The demand of the user inside the countries, inside ASEAN as well, that's another key point. Because the outdoor providers, content providers, cloud providers, they of course they want to be closer to the users. So here we have a lot of users, but then again, it's as of now, it's like everything has to come at the right time. Lower connectivity costs, better facility, which we already have a lot. We have tier 4, a lot of tier 3 data centers around the cities, and then it will be the last piece would be the government support. As of now, not just the tax incentive and the supporting on the digital transformation, but I think on the regulation as well. I think this would be another key points that prevent our growth guys, global cloud players, or global providers entering in the countries because of the laws that they are still pursuing. And with this situation, I think it will definitely help drive the growth of the data centers from now until year 2025.
Okay, I think what would be another angle. So come to some big supplier of the data center equipment, what it should be on 2025?
We are happy. Because there are a lot of investments coming in, not only from international service providers, but also national service providers. So that shows that there is a growth possibilities within Thailand. And as mentioned by the other panelists, that there's a shift in the utilization. Even the shift how the outside world looking at Thailand. So I will not be surprised to see in 5 years that we would be rated at tier 1 cities, tier 1 countries. I won't be surprised, because looking at the land availability, the cost of infrastructure, the cost, the connectivity which is coming up, the power availability, I'm sure there will be investments done to reach that expectations, and there is a capability within the country to reach that expectations, and there is a drive, because I'm sure the Thailand 4.0, which is the digitalization, which industries are connecting, more and more service providers, more and more content providers coming in. We also see that smart industries have been developed, smart cities have been thought about. We haven't seen this 6-7 years back, but now at least there's a thought, right? And as mentioned by Peter Sen, that there are big providers who are looking at Thailand, and they have plans coming in. Of course, in a couple of years, you will see another big providers coming in Thailand, for sure. We also see that the national service providers are also growing. They also have a plan to expand. So of course, in the next 5 years, you'll find that we will see some real power-hungry data centers coming in Thailand. We also will see that the power requirement from the existing large data centers will also grow by double, and we wish to happen that. So this is where we, as a service providers, we also need to look at how this growth, which might happen, exponential growth, I would say, because it's not going to be a step by step. It's going to be an exponential growth. How we take it in a proper, sustainable way, that the wave can really build up the nation as a digital nation for ASEAN by having a sustainable infrastructure. So this is where I'm sure people like Dr. Montri plays a real part to really influence the government authorities to put together a right infrastructure to support these large service providers. And we as an equipment provider also have equal responsibility to ensure that whatever products, design or solutions provided to this power hungry data centers doesn't affect the infrastructure, doesn't affect the sustainability of country. So this is where I believe not only from service provider side, but also from the equipment suppliers, from non-IT as well as from IT. I'm sure Mike will agree to that. That even from power system or the IT equipment side, there are a lot of shifts which are happening. Now we are talking about HPCs in Thailand. There are real projects for HPC in Thailand. We all know that it's high performance computing, where the power requirement per square meter goes 100 times more than the standard data center requirement. So these things are happening, and these things are really going to change the way we look at the infrastructure in Thailand. I'm sure, and I'm very happy that in a country where there's a growth in coming next 5 years. So I really appreciate that there are steps taken towards it, and it's really a collective growth plan which we all need to drive together to ensure that in the next 5 years we also will be counted in the tier 1 country.
Okay, thank you. So come to good to say he is as a consultant, what he will see anyway, because all the even though the customer or major supplier we come to you first at the gateway to Thailand. What you see about 2025? The link here by slide. Okay.
So as we know that we should be learning from our neighbor or even the international in terms of the energy and sustainability.
ขึ้นแล้วค่ะ หน้าซูมเป็นอันนี้
Okay.
อ๋อทำไมตรงนี้
To give you information about tomorrow. Tomorrow we have another data center session that we talk about the 5G and data center connect. That the trend of 5G that is already happening in Netherlands, Amsterdam, or even Korea or Japan. There are many deployments, especially China by Huawei, right? And on that session we have the Huawei and Ericsson will be the major player about the 5G in the world. So you will see many heavy duty about the informations. Think about one car, how many we talking about terabyte, not gigabyte. Because, okay, I will come back again.
Back to my favorite part, energy and sustainability infrastructure for our country that we should look forward and learn from our neighbor or even from the international country. So far, if you can see, this is from the research from the Asian Pacific, that they have the idea or the summary comparison from the 2014 move forward to 2022. So you can see the exponential growth in terms of the power requirement. So this we should be aware because data center is consumed 20 times more than the normal office building. So this is the thing that we should learn from other. And then since we are merging country and some kind of the developed country in terms of the co-location or even our nation data center, so we should have some the benchmark in terms of the energy that Dr. Bhatti had mentioned, that we have been working together and try to do some the study of the power demand and the power requirement benchmark for data center in Thailand. So if you can see the trend in terms of the clean energy, so most big player or the 5 big player they are trying to compete in terms of the 2030 that they will be the net zero carbon in terms of the 100% renewable energy. So this we have to think about that. What can we get the clean energy source? So like Google or Microsoft or Apple or Facebook, those guys they are committed to be 100% renewable energy. I think so far I know that at the previous picture you can see the Swiss, the super here. They are very much solar power supply, almost 100% for data center facility. So for Thailand, so you can see our Prime Minister already point out that the previous month, so data center and cloud have to be fast developed. But no budget. Okay, so the next slide you can see that in last year 2019, this is for our ETA that Thailand spent almost 10 hours for internet usage. This is a lot. So another thing that this is I got from the DCD as well for in terms of the Thailand data center in the 2021 in terms of the megawatt. So you can see the exponential growth as well, and also in terms of the space or spacing, Thailand is still small, but I believe that in another 2 or 3 years coming, it will be the number of the land or number of the megawatt will be growth quickly. So another thing, move forward for sustainability. Right now, as I did a lot of the study or feasibility for the external investors. So they right now is very much kilowatt per lakh is about 10 to 15. So this is our previous existing data center or the current data center, maybe the power supply or in terms of the flexibility should be more, because in terms of the cloud, they need more high end in terms of kilowatt per lakh. So a lot of things, a lot of data, because last year I spent almost 1 month in US for supercomputer HPC, because we got a project for our nation, Thailand Supercomputer Center. So there to 60 kilowatt per lakh. So I think, but they aim for 100 kilowatt per lakh as well. So this is quite challenging for us. So that's why we had to design a facility to support the liquid cooling as well. So this is another challenge for location, that if they think about the future to reduce in terms of the carbon, so maybe they need to prepare the facility to be at the demand or demand. Because I know that some of our enterprise in Thailand, they also have some the HPC server as well. But since they are still looking for the new facility, they have to find a temporary facility to host their HPC server as well. So another thing that IoT or AI, this is last year I did be a part of the chat for DCD. A lot of data center in APEC or ASEAN, they do a lot of, they using a lot of AI or machine learning to control the HVAC system as well. So this is another trend that we should learn from them, and then we should implement to in terms of to optimize the operation. Also my pocket, but I'm not sure how far that we can go for it. So this is another thing that when we design or we have the new facility, we should aim for it, the PUE. This is the categorized by the region. So for the ASEAN, it's about 1.69. Europe is 1.6, US is about 1.35. It depends on the location. Some area they have the free cooling, they can have lower than this one. For the Middle East, they have 1.79. So this is my last slide for key takeaway for Thailand data center move forward to 2022. So for the power and connectivity and water skill, this is another challenge for our country in terms of the development, in terms of the investment, like Dr. Yon mentioned about the submarine cable. We have only 3, actually we have 5, but can work well in around 3. So compared to Singapore or Hong Kong. So also the power grid, I think this one we should talk to the big authority in terms of the power redundancy and some kind of the allowance, the big power demand. Also the data government protection law, I think we still not clear that we gonna announce or not. Building in terms of the operation and standard. This is very good that we have the to be player for international that we can leverage our standard, the local. So I believe that everyone, even our nation co-location, they try to aim for the high standard. Because so far I know that we still start doing the high competitive now. No, high was for co-location. So this is another benchmark that we should have some the data association or something like that that we should talk. We don't do the high more rather than doing the good standard and good operation provider. So also the skill that we have the program that we right now we working with the University with the Dr. Murthy and another director that we will exhibit the course for data to upskill our staff in Thailand and also for our government staff as well. Also for the second one, the projection that we believe that the asset base in Thailand will be increased because of data center demand in terms of the land, and in Thailand is the bubble space. So we are very good case for everyone to come in. Even we have the COVID that we can prove that. So as a supplier, the Europe or US investor, they are keen to select Thailand rather than select the Singapore because they told me that they have 2 countries in their mind, but they put Thailand first because of the COVID. So another thing, the more, as I mentioned, the more global player will come to Thailand for sure, and also more local partners will have in Thailand. Also, the develop all the supply and all the sectors. And the last thing, the digital transformation from our government or even the EEC area for the digital part. I hope that it will be make it happen for our country. So this is about my view.
Okay, because we still have about half an hour, so I have special questions that maybe someone want to know for this one. Just about 5 minutes for the answers. Okay, if start from Dr. Nidipong, if you ask government, can ask the government, or government can give you the idea what you will ask help from the government to help the data center segment to grow up.
Thank you very much for the question. I think one of the key concerns is that the government can help create some form of a guideline or regulation that can attract large cloud providers to come to Thailand. I think that will certainly help kind of like put in some incentive or some form that can attract them to come to Thailand. So people like AWS, Facebook, Google, these guys, if we can show them that the data or the platform that we put in Thailand will be able to be freely and independent enough. I think the government can help to show that. These companies will certainly come to Thailand and grow data center very fast than what in reality is right now. So that I think that if I ask the government is put some form of a regulation to be more open. So once the regulation is open, not just the content like these cloud provider will come, but open regulation in terms of the submarine cable investment. So there will be more investors that can invest in submarine cable along with the data growth. So these things come together. So once the government keep more open to infrastructure and international players to come, that would certainly be something I would like to ask them. And probably another question that comes also with it will be that once they come, definitely we need a way to incentivize data center to protect the environment. Right now, if the government has some form of reduced tax to reduce some carbon footprint or things like that, that will certainly help data center to put more money to be not just to cope with the growth demand, but able to put their money to have a sustainable energy as well. Because right now, if the competition, like what the same mentioned, is very high, right? So if data center wants to, if these OTT or large player come to Thailand and they have to invest in data center, however, the cost of investment is so high that they still go back to their normal using high carbon, and it doesn't use any sustainable to the environment. I think government can help in this in terms of tax incentive to motivate data center. Once they grow to meet these customer demands, they can also give us sustainable growth to the country. I think these probably be the two main questions that I would like the government to support, so that it will be a good base to the future on the data center business, and also for the Thailand growth as well.
Okay, thank you. That Dr. Nitapong talking about OTT, that means like Netflix or YouTube, that they don't need infrastructure, that our content in, that's all. So that's why if you put Netflix plus Google equal to half transaction of this world, that's why OTT is important in the future. Okay, the same question to Kun Usuri. What did you ask the government? What should you want?
Thank you. Of course, on the regulation, as Dr. also mentioned, it doesn't have to be like too flexible. I think we already have the standard of the nearby countries that they also implement that. So I think that the government could just adopt a similar kind of approach, because as of now, it is quite clear that it's not quite flexible and give the benefits to all the providers. That's why other global players are not coming into Thailand as of now. So apart from this regulations that they need to support on the computer parametric data regulation law, those kind of things has to be. I think we need to have it, but it has to be not creating a burden for the provider. And another thing would be on the operate license to operate the business. I think it's not that clear whether each of the providers, each data center provider, are required to have the operate the license to operate. And with this license to operate, I think we could use it as part of like if you want them to be focusing more on the sustainable ways, less carbon footprint, and if they do so, it would kick back into some sort of like tax incentive or other benefits that it will motivate or give some motivate all the providers to go for certain, because as of now, since it's not clear, so some providers have license to operate, some doesn't have, and everybody still need a business. So I think we should the government should be clear on this one.
That's the good request for the government, because we have the same problems. Okay, Abe, you have to help your customer. What should you ask for?
So I believe, we all need to acknowledge that as in Thailand, we are seeing the change. Government is seeing the change. It's just that we are reacting slow. So this is where there is a direction. We have been discussing of data privacy laws for a few years now. Of course, there is a direction, there is a step which is taken. But I believe today's world, the way it is evolving, if we don't react fast enough, we might miss the trend, right? So this is where I believe we need to really help the country to ensure that we react fast enough to the requirement. And the other part, of course, Dr. Montri is doing a great job towards putting together the right standards which can govern the upcoming data centers within Thailand, right? So we need to have, of course, there are global standards like Big C, India, and N42 time. They define the global requirement, but this global requirement can adopt or cannot be adopted for Thailand. So we need to pick and choose what is adoptable, and this is where there should be norms or government standard, something like this, which Singapore has already deployed, right? They have their own standards, they have their own requirements, but they come up when they started feeling the heat. Rather, we can do something as proactive than reactive, where we can set up few requirements which actually helps the international players to get into this country, the ease of operations, the right amount of feedback given to them, where they can reduce the OPEX. Because end of the day, what matters for the service providers is an OPEX, right? CapEx investment, of course, there's a help which is given by government by having a BOI privilege. But you remember, these data centers are not going to be in the country for 4 to 5 years. They're going to be for a very long duration. So this CapEx investment on an ROI basis has to be at least done from 15 to 20 to 25 years down the line. So those from day 1 to 25 years is basically the OPEX. So this is where we believe that we working with the government, we should be able to set up a way of some kind of benefits to be given so that they also can reduce this OPEX by having the right environment. And of course, sustainability should be the base of it. So if you need to have this data center working in the country for next years, it's very important that we give the sustainable environment to these service providers as well. So this is where, of course, we are moving, but I believe we need to move fast. That's the only thing which I would request. Being an outsider, but being hard. So that's it. I think I can only say up to that. I can't say beyond it.
Okay, so the key man, he will be a big voice because as his consultants, he are neutral as well. So what you if you ask, because this is the challenge of the business as well.
I think in terms of the dealing with our government, quite a bit challenge. So, but if we do nothing, nothing can get it. So we should start doing something in terms of for the BOI, for the consumption that they have is 8+5 or something. So I think probably as we mentioned, the investor since they decide that they want to invest in Thailand, it will be last longer to be in Thailand. So maybe we can increase in terms of the sustainability, and then if you comply, you can get more. And also, as Putin mentioned about the license that is not clear. So this should be have the clear picture and bear on the table, and then as you know that data center is key in terms of the power supply. So we have to have some kind of the tool or the strategy to capture that if you want to get more benefit, you have to invest in terms of the sustainability as well. And also, we have the good data center, but in terms of the human or the operation. That's another important thing that we would like to focus. If the government has some kind of the scholarship or some kind of the sponsorship that they can give, like similar to Singapore, that they have the scheme that who want to work in data center industry and then they want to upskill, government will pay 90% for you to study and upskill more and more, and then you have to pay only 10%, something like this. So if have some kind of the authority sit down here, so we better want to propose this kind of stuff to them.
Yes, I think we have about 3 questions and we have many answers. So the idea for this seminar to tell you about, we try to pinpoint the problems to the government. That means during this seminar, I try to write down some, we call the report to the big guy of Thailand, because I did this one not just only this year, I did already 8 years. I fight with the change about 4 Ministry of IT. They changed the name of the ministry. So that means we have to do something rather than nothing. So that's why tomorrow as well, we have a seminar for the data center. We have many pain points for why they don't come. So maybe you heard by yourself already, they have many requirements from, even though the big guy, data center, even though the supplier and the consultants. So my idea why we cannot become the hub of ASEAN is that we all have plenty of land. We are the cheaper power in Asia, or in ASEAN, I think. And we have many good strategic locations. We have we call the land link. We have the AAE1 come from Europe, and we have the AAG come to US. We are in the middle of the world. So that means we have to understand our capability. And what is the problem? We cannot over surpass Singapore. That's the thing, I think it's almost 8 years. And we try together. Right now, I'm working with CONCEPTUAL together with EIT, because Engineering Institute of Thailand. We draft our own data center standard. We did it already. We draft the second one, data center operation in Thai version. We draft already DESIGN for Thai version. And we're going for the next one. We're going to build out Data Center Association of Thailand. You know, in Japan, they have JDCC, Japanese Data Center Council. I already talked to them almost 4 years. They asked me why Thailand don't have it. I think, good. That maybe this year or next year, we will have it. For you, we will have it. And then we will combine it, we will force it together. Tomorrow, BOI will come in, they confirm me already. So you will know exactly what the tax privilege, tax exemption, even though the power is tied to negotiation. If you're doing data center in EEC, right now, you will heard the new word we call SEC, Southern Economic Corridor. Because over there, the AE1 come to soon and out from the Songkla. That area, we talk about Klong Thai in Japan. That we will next the new project after Suvarnabhumi Airport. So that's the thing becoming. So we keep going, we keep changing. If you not change, the world will change you. That's all I believe. So today we can go back earlier, but I think we cannot go back because maybe you're waiting. Okay, anyway, thanks you for our speaker today. And thanks you our audience. I will take this opportunity to take a photo together with our speaker, Kun Mike. Yeah. เอาข้างล่างดีกว่าไหมครับ
ขอบคุณมากครับยังไงผู้กินเชิญด้วยนะเดี๋ยวจำ